What the fuck is that? It looks like grandma, the fucking thing.
Ready yourself. I will be waiting.
Hi, Zizaran here with another video league starter for the upcoming Affliction League, and this is Summon Raging Spirits on a Guardian, and this is a collab with Subtractem. And this is very likely what I have to end up playing for my league start until I swap to Falling Zombies, and this is also my fallback option for if Falling Zombies is no good. It's very important to have a solid fallback, and Summon Raging Spirit absolutely is. This is such a strong build with very few downsides. Maybe like early on a little bit low on physical mitigation, but an absolute powerhouse of a build. And I've heard that this Radiant Crusade thing is the smoothest leveling experience you will ever have because it comes in super powered as soon as you ascend. So while the build might be slightly slow until you ascend, it is just, you know, you either level with Summon Raging Spirits or Rolling Magma. Until then, once you get that, you are running around and Convocate, killing the screen. It scales super well into endgame. This is something people were farming Ubers with last league. A lot of people were surprised that Radiant Crusade did not get nerfed this. So many options for this build, and maybe Falling Zombies ends up being incredibly strong, and then we have that as well. So obviously this is a minion build. Until you get recently summoned minions can't be killed, then SRS can be a bit of a pain on some things, like maybe Ultimatum and maybe Simulacrum, but that is something you can get on a cluster jewel later. Early on, that is a bit of a downside, and again, minions can be not everybody's playstyle, so do consider that before choosing the build. So before we get into the PoB, let's hear a little bit from Subtractem about how the build actually plays.
Once this build is fully set up, you don't have to press many buttons. All you want to do is periodically summon your Sentinel of Radiance. This guy will last about 30 seconds. He'll take 20% damage from hits for you. He'll make you a little bit tankier. And he will also taunt and do some AoE fire damage. In addition, you want to be periodically casting your Haste Divine Blessing. This will last about 15 seconds. It will buff you and your minions, make you go faster. Besides that, Shield Charge, Frostblink, and cast your Summon Raging Spirits. You can summon up to 20 of them. They will seek out aggressively by default, go out and kill all of your enemies, and you just let them do the work. And that's really all there is to it. Let's go and show the single target damage. As you can see, a little bit of ramp once you get the minions, but then it feels nice and good to go. And that's all the mechanics involved in playing the Summon Raging Spirits Guardian. Back to you, Ziz.
If these builds help you have a great league start for Affliction, please consider subscribing. It does help the channel massively, and thank you so much. We're starting with Rolling Magma. So we did talk a little bit about that, and Subtractem said that early on, SRS is mostly fine, and you can do like melee splash with Ruthless, and that will be fine. However, it can be a little bit problematic on Izaro when he summons the skeletons, etc. But Rolling Magma is incredibly fast early as well. I am doing everything explained on this, which will be mostly following this guide by Subtractem. So the way that works is I'm playing, assuming that I'm explaining the game to a completely new player playing for the first time, and they can play along, follow the links, follow the sockets, etc. And that'll be mostly following this build guide. So here is Path of Building. We do have a video that explains how that works if you're unfamiliar with it. And it might say something like convert to 323 here in green text at the bottom. Don't worry about that at all. The build is already up to date. There's no like actual changes there. And Subtractem has put lots of effort here into making a step-by-step skill tree, making it incredibly easy to follow and see what's happening here so that you don't get lost with your skill points, masteries, etc. And it's very easy to follow with the ascendancy things as well. So your first one here is Radiant Crusade, and this is a minion that you summon, you convocate it with convocation, and boom, it is just disintegrating everything. So very easy to see what ascendancy points you are actually taking as well as your first, second, third, and fourth lab. And then we have the final tree here, which is like pretty early endgame, and then we have Subtractem as an additional endgame tree here with cluster jewels as well. And Subtractem is going to be league starting this himself, so if you run into any problems, you can go to his channel and ask questions there, and he's making a written guide for max roll. So if you don't like video guides like that, check out his max roll guide, which will be linked in the description down below. You can see here that you have melee splash for clearing, and you can swap that with multi-strike for bossing. So if you really need a lot of single target, you put in the multi-strike instead of the melee splash. We have a Spectre, etc. Then we have the Dominance, and a big difference between the zombie build and this is we are actually using the Elemental Relic, so we get a lot of our damage from that.
In this build, I recommend the Arena Master and the Pale Seraphim. Pale Seraphim will put a buff on a debuff on a monster that makes it take 15% increased damage, and the Arena Master will do a temporary buff that gives you and your minions 20% increased attack, movement, and cast speed. So
Awesome.
those are great buffs to get. The Pale Seraphim, you get it from Beyond. It's a bit of pain in the butt to get because the corpses will disappear, but you can ask other people for it from their Desecrate pools. Global Channel 6666 is the Spectre sharing channel for minion players. So those are the two recommended ones. When you're getting started, though, you can go to Act 2 in the Old Fields and get the Carnage Chieftain, which will give you frenzy charges to you and your Summon Raging Spectres. That will be pretty good starting off. It's not as good as the other ones. And then if you want a more defensively oriented one, you can actually take the Wild Bristle Matron, which is the big purple bear from Harvest, which does some knockback, some stun to keep the enemies off of you while you have your minions out.
Amazing. That helps a lot. If we go over here to items, you can see early on, it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, if you get something like a +1 fire seal gems, do remember that SRS is fire. So that's good early. Minion damage as well, or +1 minion gems, and obviously +1 all spell seal gems works as well, and that'll affect your auras. And you can see that your early gear is super easy to get. Profane Proxy can be a little bit rare, but that's not the end of the world. And it is pretty buyable very often. So Lightning Coil is incredibly easy to farm. And I'll explain quickly how that works. And it drops in maps like Cemetery, generally most open maps that could be hit by lightning. So the way Lightning Coil works is that we don't have a large amount of physical damage mitigation on our build. So let's say whenever a build is close to 0 physical mitigation, if it was going to take 1,000 damage, then, well, it would just take 1,000 damage. However, if you have a Lightning Coil, then half of that is being mitigated against your lightning resist instead, which is at least 75. And it's really, really good. And we're using a Topaz Flasky as well to make that further mitigated. And the remaining damage, the remaining 50% is mitigated by your armor. And taking smaller hits is really good for armor. So Lightning Coil is incredibly strong because of that. You can see here, even early game, like examples of implicits to get, etc. And then there is post League Start gear for once you have a little bit more budget. You can see loads of things here, and you can also follow along with Subtractem when he's playing this live and see what kind of gear upgrades he's going for. See like jewels here as well. And then there is a Animate Guardian one as well. So this is the stuff you want to animate on your Animate Guardian, and that will give you all of those auras and buffs. So they're all pretty cheap uniques. So Southbound, for example, giving max minion life basically, ends up being really good on the Animate Guardian, making it keep alive. However, do note that when your Animate Guardian dies, it does lose all the gear. And there's some extra information here in notes. Make sure you can check that out. And this is something people have done Ubers on as well. It's a very strong build and ends up just feeling really well. So SRS be very, very popular on both Guardian and on Champion, and is a very strong build. The bandits for this build is you kill them all. That's pretty much every build now. There are some builds that help Alira, but very few. And then Brian King as the major god and minor god is Abrath. And remember, you can get avoid being frozen once you have the divine vessels. So very, very strong to try to get that early, especially if you only have 1 life last. Then you can have corrupting blood immunity on that, and you already have freeze removal, so you don't have to worry about being frozen. Now, an important thing for this build is the trigger gem. So let me show you real quick a trick for how to get unveils faster. So very early, you will see a lot of people just stuck in foothills instead of farming Blood Aqueduct. And they are just restarting and refreshing this. And, well, GGG have actually nerfed this league by adding a monster pack at the waypoint, which is a hilarious way to nerf something. So it's slightly slower than normal, but what we're looking for now is by having the map overlay open like this, if it says on the right side here something about betrayal, like find the transportation or find the fortification, then betrayal is in the zone. Sadly, you can't see intervention, but you can see the others, and you can see research as well. So most of the time, if there is a betrayal in the zone, you'll see it here on the right. You do need to be level 72 and below. It's if you're more than 10 levels above the zone, then league mechanics stop spawning. So while doing this right now, I cannot get that, and I cannot get delirium, but you can farm like beasts, delirium, and betrayal by doing this. You'll see a lot of people will do that, and that is just to get early Katarina and lots more early betrayals so that you can get your trigger gems without having to rely on master missions and maps. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please make sure to check out Subtractem. He put a lot of love and a lot of effort into this build guide, and he is playing it at league start even like further beyond. He's actually like taking this to the end game, whereas I'm swapping off to a different build. So make sure you check him out. And again, he does have a guide on max roll, so check that out as well. Please subscribe to both of our channels on Twitch and YouTube. And yeah, we'll both be streaming loads of League Start. So really love collabing with Subtractem. He's a great dude. Again, check him out. Either way, I hope you guys liked the video. Sub if you like it. More importantly, try to die than I do.